First, Hello. I thought I took that off. Where I took that off. Hello, everyone. All right. I'm starting the stream late because I made some tea. And after I poured it, I realized there was a hair inside. So I had to do it again. That's wonderful. This is what I get for making tea instead of coffee. Lesson learned. Also, I had to debug OBS because, as always, didn't feel like working. Hello, Stony. All right. Wait, no, genuinely, how did you get a 7 stream streak? Thank you anyway. God damn it. There goes Zed leaking my super secret code. Game code. Curse Devil, what's up? How you doing? Okay, today's away. Today's away. Today's away. Today's a day that I'm so excited about I literally cannot even speak. Today's away. Okay, I speak properly for the love of God. Today's the day that I finally do a thing that I've been looking forward to doing for a long time. That's the sentence that I was trying to utter. What's the comp arch course? Competitive Arch Linux? Archery? Competitive archery? Computer architecture! Oh. Well, that one makes more sense than competitive archery now, doesn't it? Except, like I said last week, I've been playing Kingdom Come Deliverance, so it really doesn't. It's taken over my life. Hello, I'm Anna. And remember when YouTube used to show you people's names in the chat? And you could actually read people's names. That was a cool time back in the day. Hold on, my stream just finished on YouTube. Alright, we're good. Right, by the way, I want to show something. A bug that has existed in YouTube Studio since I've been making content, which is admittedly not a whole lot of time. I'm also streaming on Twitch, yes. Let me see. This is a bug that has existed for as long as I know on YouTube Studio. I don't know if it happens on web. I disabled the chat overlay. There it is.
Under__Omida followed your channel.
No, it doesn't happen on... Well, okay, hold on. Can I see recent comments? Yes. Ah, but there's none right now. Alright, so the thing, YouTube Studio shows you in the homepage this little comments section with the latest comments, and none of the latest comments right now show what I want to show. But when the comment has a timestamp, like this one or this one, it shows it with the person's username and then the text, and the blue color, this happens especially on mobile, I feel like, the blue color is always shifted, so it would be somewhere here, because it also considers the length of the string as being the username plus the comment itself. But then it calculates where the blue should be based on the size of the comment alone, so it gets it wrong. That's a bug that has existed for at least 2 years in YouTube Studio, which is, by the way, down every other day, if you don't know this. YouTube, pretty good uptime. Can't remember the last time they had a. Well, I do remember. It was somewhat recently, but very unlikely that YouTube will have downtime. Very unlikely that YouTube Studio will have uptime, on the other hand. I think it just takes a freaking break during the weekend. It just goes. You know, YouTube Studio's hanging out with the family. Got a big family dinner Friday. Going to church on Sunday. Don't have time to be serving you up content statistics and tools for your YouTube content. That's Monday through Friday type of behavior. So it's down every other day. Writing Vibe OS. Give it a try. I'm sure that's gonna be. Don't waste your time. The thing about most vibe coded projects is they have no utility. Because the same thing that you did, I can do. And also, if I vibe code 1% less, I'm probably gonna make it 10% better. So, I really don't see the point of vibe coding. I see the point of AI assisted coding. Barely. No, I mean I see the point. I don't like the implementation, but I see the point. For vibe coding though, I definitely don't get it. Then again, still waiting for someone to show me a useful vibe coded project that isn't just an AI tool, because that's what they tend to be. Okay, here's what I'm working on today. The thing that I'm very excited about, the thing that I've been waiting months, years, decades, centuries for. Put on my stream to fall asleep. I'm glad. I hope I don't rage and yell at 3 a.m. It's unlikely, but not impossible. 50% vibe code. 50% vibe coded. I feel like something that's 49% vibe coded is gonna be better, probably. Alright, the thing that I've been waiting literally 14 billion years, the existence of the universe, to do, a sandboxed file system. Apple beat me to it by like 10 years. Fucking insane. Been waiting 14 billion years, they beat me by 10. Also, I'm pretty sure Apple wasn't the first ones to do this. Like, this is how most mobile phones work. Android, iOS. And I'm sure this was also a thing before. Alright, so what do we mean by sandboxed file system? Well, I already have a very basic implementation, very rudimentary implementation of this. Which is, since the Big Bang, is how long I've been waiting to implement this. I haven't implemented it before, so technically it's true. And energy cannot be created or destroyed, so I've existed in the universe in one way or another for 14 billion years. So, am I wrong? No. Clearly not. I have this in a very rudimentary way. Same way as I have a very rudimental headache right now. Yeah, I love sinuses. Very useful. Starting to understand Voldemort. Without a nose, no sinus infections. Guy had a point. Yeah, when you open a file from a syscall, so only in userland processes, when you open and I want this to only be in userland processes, when you open a file by going to /resources, we actually forward that in a way to your own project's bundle resource folder. So that means if I'm in user demo here and I talk to /resources, it goes to the demo.red, which is where the executable is, resource folder, and gets the picture from here. Okay, so that's the very simple version of what I have built. Now I need to build it properly. So this to do, pretty much. Now I don't know about the privilege escalation for full-ish system access. That's the thing. The way that I plan on building this is to just expand what I already have, not really to replace anything. So you'll still have access for the time being to the full file system, but you'll also have access to certain folders that you can only access from within your application, like the resource folder. I will prevent the system from accessing the full file system essentially when one of these local paths collides, not collapses, collides with one of the real ones. Essentially, when you cannot tell the difference between home inside the root directory and home inside of your application. That's just an example. You're actually not going to go to home. Alright. Still a bit hot. Lemony though. I do remember when I worked on this, I wrote down some... That's kind of it. Not really. That's for distributed file system. Where is it? No, my perfect system of organization is breaking down. No! I can't find what I'm looking for. Wait, it's actually not here. It is actually not here, but I already implemented this, so we're gonna get rid of that. Oh well, I guess it's gone, unless it's this thing. No. Okay. Don't remember, but anyway. Every directory inside of the root directory in the system, which we can actually look at. Yeah, okay. This is the root directory. Every one of these is actually loaded as a module. So each of them uses this system module structure. And I essentially want to make it per module that you decide whether something gets forwarded to the process or whether it is mirrored to the process or whether it is inaccessible to the process. Did I say mirrored? Forwarded, instanced, or nothing? Alright, so forwarding means you can access the directory directly. Like the clipboard, for example, you should have full access to the clipboard without any limitations. You should know that the clipboard is not secure, but you do have access to it. And it is a way for processes to share information between them. Hello, Amex. Proc, for example, which is not a shitty AI tool, but PROC. This one here shows me information of all the current running processes. And yes, we do only have 5. Apparently. shows me information of all the running processes. This should only show me information of my current process. And probably to not break a bunch of functionality that I have in certain places, also any child processes. So that would be instanced, where you see the directory, like the real directory /proc exists on the kernel level. It's always there. But the application will only see a slice of that. Which, maybe if I make it clever enough, going to /proc will immediately take you to this part of your process. So /proc will forward to /proc/7, whereas /proc/8 can take me to a child process, so I can see that information. But I'm not feeling too clever today, so not that today. Overall roadmap, I got you. Here you go. Isn't it beautiful? This is the roadmap to 1.0. Now, honestly, it's this. Of which I usually go through it every once in a while, but I haven't in a bit. Blue is something I've already started working on. Green is something that it's not really finished. More so, it's, it does what it's supposed to do. It can always be improved. It can always have new features, but it works. With the thing that I'm talking about today, actually, encryption and permissions are going to be important as hell, so that a process can't just say, hey, by the way, I have full system access, and they get full system access. So you shouldn't work like that. So it should be somewhat secure. So eventually I'll get to that. Multi-threading, yesterday I was implementing signals, and they very much should be implemented as if they were their own thread, because they are. So might do multi-threading soon-ish. Essentially, next time I need to do something with signals. And I still need to explore my window manager more. I need to keep that going a little bit further. Maybe after I'm done with the terminal. And the error recovery, because Linux doesn't have an equivalent of Control-Alt-Escape. No, Control-Alt-Delete or Control-Option-Escape, in which the system just like completely takes over because something's happened in userland that's not supposed to happen. And, it helps you recover from the issue. Linux has a terminal in those cases. It's not amazing to navigate, and it barely can handle the problem. It can barely fix the problems that you're having, so it's probably just easier to restart your Linux computer if you run into a big problem. So I want to avoid that. So besides that, everything else is blue or red or green, which means I've already started building the overall way that everything's gonna work. Yeah, usually sometimes I go through the roadmap a little bit more in detail. Maybe I'll do it by the end of the stream if I have some time. Alright, so that is the plan. Each module is going to be marked as forwarding, which means the entire module becomes available to the processes. Instanced, which means a certain section of the file system is available to a process. Or no access at all, or request access even, in which you have to specify what you want to have access to. Alright, so that is the plan. And again, no access doesn't really exist, because what I really want to do is I want to have the processes access kind of like this fake resources folder and any other fake folders that I give them, but still have access to the full file system, because completely replacing a system that for a year now has had full file system access to one that is sandboxed right away, a bit difficult. So I'm going to take this step by step. First, I'm going to give them access between... I need to close Discord. I need to... I'm laughing at the stupidest fucking joke. Alright. A process can have access to the full file system and also to these virtual, well, they're all virtual to be fair, but also to these process-specific folders, and then only to its own folders. So I'm going to do it layered like that. I'm going to do a little bit of compatibility. But speaking of that, I realized something when I was looking at the file browser inside the system. I used to have a folder called shared, which I then turned into home. It was called shared because it was shared between Linux and the system. It still is, but it shouldn't be called shared. It should be called home. So what I did, it's very ugly. If only I remember where I did it. Shouldn't it be here? Yeah. What I did is I have a system module for home, and then I have a system module for shared, which is the same thing. It literally uses all the same functions, except for a different initialization function because it doesn't need to initialize anything. And shared just forwards to home in a very ugly way. So I'm thinking, if I get rid of any reference to /shared inside of the kernel itself, and I use only /home, I can use the shared folder as a test for the system. Right, like this process, this is a userland process, and it tries to access /shared. It will be able to, but if the kernel tries to, it won't be able to. I just need to make sure that all the references to that in the kernel itself are gone. So these are references to the... these are in userland, so these are fine. These are going to be forwarded. This is the only one that was inside the kernel. I got rid of it. That's it. Alright, so if I get rid of this fake alias module and its function, and just leave this function like that, I'm only loading the home module. And alright, so the theme loaded, which means the kernel works fine. The launcher fails to get any applications that were inside of shared because now they're inside of home. So actually, I was thinking to test the functionality of what I'm going to build, I was going to need the file browser, but actually I don't. If it works, I'll see more applications here, because right now they're in a directory that doesn't exist. Shared applications. Okay. Essentially, my plan for this is to use the same module system that I have for the kernel to also make a new, completely separate module system for the processes. And each has their own. Again, right now with the fallback off, if this local module system doesn't work, meaning the folder doesn't exist inside of the process, we check in the full file system. Okay. Now there is one thing here that I wanted to change. First off, does this extern reference need to be here? No. Okay. And second, I want to use a hash map here instead of a linked list of modules, which is ugly as hell. So it's going to take me a little bit, but I do need it so I can build this functionality later. Well, I don't really need it. It's just useful. So using a linked list for directories doesn't make much sense when you can have a hash map. Alright. So you initialize it as a hash map, create with an initial capacity of 64. So you initialize that. Then, this is where I put data in it. And this is where I find data from it and I unload it. This is where I get data. This is going to become a lot simpler. And this is where I list contents. Alright, so I'll need to replace all of those. Alright, so we start by loading a module. First we create the hash map. Then we push the module in. And now instead of just pushing it as a linked list, so the last element of a linked list, we just put dictionary, where we use the module's own name, or mount point. It's mount point as the dictionary, and the module is the data. And it goes into that array. Not sure if this conversion is necessary anymore, but we'll keep it. It's just a physical to virtual address. Okay, so that's how you put an item inside of it. Very simple. Now to get an item based on the full path, it is calling this fs search structure, where fs search was checking the start of the directory to see if it matches the module. Which means, technically, if I have a module called path, and I try to access this, it matches, which is wrong. So, probably gonna make it more clever now. Alright, might break the entire file system by doing this. But we take a const char pointer pointer, so we take a double pointer. That's because char pointer is a pointer to a string. Sorry, the char pointer is a string, and a pointer to that is a pointer to a string. Because what this function does is it takes the path that it's given, checks to see if it's the correct one, and then moves it forward so that you don't receive, the rest of the file system doesn't receive /shared/projects. It only receives /projects. Right. So, alright, if no full path or no full path, return 0. Alright, so we access the path like this, and we're going to want to search if there's an initial slash, we're going to skip that. And then we're going to seek to the next slash. So we're going to advance the string until we get to that point. Which means we start here, we skip this if we have it, which we should, but just in case we check if we have it. Then we advance to the next one of these. We're going to use this to calculate the module, and then we're going to use the rest, or pass the rest onto the actual module to process. So I can access to and file. Okay, so hashmap get from modules. You're going to get something with the key of path and the length of full path minus path. Also getting rid of this character in the length. And that is going to give us a node directly, I believe. So we can actually just return that. Okay, I deleted one more line than I should have. Holy, I cannot navigate. I don't know how long I've been coding. I cannot navigate code with just a keyboard. Holy hell, I'm so bad at it. Alright, so we take our path, we get rid of the initial thing, we look for the next thing, so we can compare a module, and then we return the result of that. And the rest of the path goes in here. Okay, I also need to fix this onload thing, which is going to be replaced by a hashmap remove. Very similar logic there. We do something. We don't really need to do anything complicated here. Take the module, we remove the module's mount point with the strlen of that. Wait, hold on. Do I have a remove dictionary? No, not really. And the value of that we're gonna leave as 0. We don't really need to get the value at all. Goes into modules. We don't need that anymore. All right. I have to say I'm a little bit, this is the listing root directory thing. I'm a little bit surprised that it iterates using a do while loop. Because node next, right? Because it's a linked list. All right. Did I write this? I did write this 4 weeks ago. I remember writing this. I'm just surprised that I used a do while loop instead of a for loop. Okay. Doesn't matter. We're not using a linked list anymore. We're gonna have to get rid of that. I could use a for each here, but the for each isn't gonna be amazing. I'm using a for each. Let's get rid of all that. Alright, so I call the function iterate root, and the signature for that function is that it takes in a void pointer, unsigned long, and void pointer. Alright, void pointer, which is the key, unsigned long, which is the key len, and void pointer, which is the value. Void. Okay. These are always so hard to read. You know, if this was formatted a little bit better, it would be really easy for you to see where exactly the problem is, because you could compare void, like that, one by one, but you can't. It's a void pointer, unsigned long, void pointer, as opposed to void pointer, unsigned long. Fuck you mean long? Okay. Oh, U64. Alright. Now the logic here is that you do need to save the offset somewhere. We need an index and a count, both initialized at 0. If the count is smaller than the index, then return, do nothing. Because we're going to use the index to allow us to use an offset. Because listing a directory doesn't always mean listing the entire directory. We're limited to a certain specified amount of space, so we do what we can. We provide as many entries as fit in there and an offset so you can get more. Alright, so if we haven't reached the offset yet, we're just going to return. Otherwise, we're going to increase the count. Well, hold on. We'll also need to increase the count here. In that case, it's easier for me to do this. Increase how many entries I've found, and if it's less or equal to the index, because I'm starting to count here, so I'm one above what it should be, then I haven't yet reached... Well, these are the entries that I'm supposed to skip because I'm using an offset. Right, then I just could have copied this code. That. I realize now that actually the old code wasn't doing this check. It was using the index, but it wasn't doing anything with it. Okay, our module is here. We'll need to hold this helper somewhere. And offset becomes list offset. Where you return that, but not really. Alright, the problem with iterating with function pointer is that I can't tell it to stop iterating. So it's a little bit more wasteful. Then again, I don't expect you to have a whole ton of directories in your root directory. Kind of weird if you do. But you do you. I guess you'll make your system really slow for no reason. Alright, so we saved the offset. And that's it. That should do it. Alright. So if I did everything right, I didn't. Did not do everything right. Since everything is now broken. I literally can't even open Windows. Ah, great. It crashes. Most likely because there is no full path anymore. I'd be a little bit surprised by that. I should probably not print anything, but not do that.
Lambda.
No, it actually crashes on that. That's interesting. It crashes on this. No, it crashes just for printing. Oh. Oh, it does crash just for printing. This happens when you're loading any module, which includes the printing module. Okay, what can I do about that? Alright, first off, I want to test. Does it actually not open Windows? Because that would be weird. It does not open Windows at all. There's probably a check to see if there's a program to launch inside the window, and if there isn't, then it doesn't do anything. Okay, that kind of sucks, if that's the case. Alright, the same log should be doable out here as well. It is. Okay. So it searches for boot redOS redacted config, and it turns into redOS redacted config, which is correct. I think. Wait. Is it correct? This is what it was before. No, funnily enough, it used to have a slash before it. which might actually change everything. Git dash pop. And I'm gonna do a git log because sometimes I accidentally run the last command without reading what it is. And if that's a pop, that's gonna be a problem. So, okay. I was about to run 2 commands back, so I was still about to run the damn thing. Alright. Search path turned from home to theme and from boot RedOS theme config to RedOS theme config. That looks correct to me. But it says that it failed to load module theme init failed. Because it tries to read this and it fails if it cannot read, yeah, that. I'm also not sure why I'm loading the theme at this point. I have to access this folder, but somehow I'm accessing this folder to then access this folder. Like there's a theme selector and there's a theme configuration file, but they're in different places. I'm not sure why I did it like that. Maybe it made sense with them, but it doesn't now. Anyway, the only way that this can fail is if we fail to read the buffer. So yeah. As far as I can tell, is it just not returning a path, a module? I'm assuming that's what's happening. It's advancing properly, but it's not finding the correct thing. Search path turned into this with a module of 0. Yep. Okay. That explains it. Hello, Mel's. Hardest part to develop so far? It's not really the hardest part, it's just you can't really go too far with it. It's any drivers for hardware that isn't documented. How do you do that? You just have to guess. And, well, there's also the Linux source code, which nobody wants to read, which is why I don't have a Raspberry Pi working right now. Because of that. Also, I don't understand how you can possibly market your computers as open source and DIY friendly, but then they're not really. I mean, they are open source software, but not hardware. But at the same time, how is that DIY friendly? If I can't do my own thing if I don't use Linux. It's DIY friendly so long as you use Linux, and ideally our Linux distro. Okay, so why are you failing? Why are you failing? Probably this. Probably this check here is very suspicious. Ah, I can't print, can I? Alright. You do reverse engineer, but it's also not always so doable. Like, do I just throw random bits at random places, hoping that eventually gives me a valid response? I've actually tried that. Wait, hold on. Yeah, I remember this. I can kind of just skip searching for it's a bit of a dumb check there, but there's no such thing as a memory dump when there's just nothing happening. You're supposed to configure everything. From a point where only one register works and everything else will crash your system, to a point where everything works, it's not much of a memory dump that's gonna help you there. Alright, can that log module boo? Okay, so I don't really need this, do I? Module boot, module home. Yeah, I didn't really need this part. Alright, so I want to find a module that has this string, this length, which is giving me home and boot. Ah, but we already skipped a character here. So why am I skipping a character in the first place? Should only be skipping that here. How did nothing change? The full path we're looking for is /boot. Wait, no. No, wait, okay, hold on, that's correct. I'm confused. The module exists. Wait, what is this though? Module boot, module home, module boot. But there's a very suspicious module this, which I don't know what that could possibly be. That's disk. Oh. There's a check somewhere for /disk. This module is not being loaded properly, so it never loads the actual file systems. Alright, so that check I just removed. Not this one. This one. Okay, that's more consistent. I just don't understand who's accessing that one. Alright, print the full path. Because I couldn't find it in the code, the place where they access this one. Full path disk. Alright, that makes sense. Then, why can't I find here the place where disk is getting called? Oh, it's this one, okay. Yeah, initialize the file system, and if the disk module doesn't load, then you return false. So that's the problem. I mean, if the disk module isn't loaded, that means we don't have a disk. We don't initialize this disk partition. Although that's not super accurate. This would be more accurate. So we'd still be loading one directory, just not the other. But either way, we should be loading both directories, because the disk path does exist. Just gonna quickly. Have I already done this? Would you look at that? I have already done this. Alright. There's a first path component that I can use to do this. Alright, that returns a string slice. Right, and here we can do that check again, that if mod name length, if no mod name length, then we return 0. Otherwise, if the mod name data starts with this, we're going to advance it. And remove one from the length. So we're going to skip the initial slash here so we can look for it. We're going to search for mod name data and mod name length. We're also just going to print mod name here. And we advance the full path by mod name length, which we'll also need to do like that. Not sure if that's what I'm going for, so I'd rather make more explicit like that. Okay.
Adelfanner followed your channel.
All right. File system's back. And yeah, random disk graph. This is the one that was failing. Graph console, temp, boot, audio, language, tools, proc, home, clipboard, theme, and in. What we don't have is resources and shared. Shared is now home. All right. To do, use hash maps. There you go. I've already done that. How's that? I've also muted my computer for some reason. Should also make it technically faster to... You didn't actually change anything here. What are you... It's just an extra line. Alright, no. Should technically make it faster to go through the thing because it's now using a hash map instead of a linked list. But again, you probably didn't have a whole lot of modules, so wouldn't really make sense for it to have been slow in the first place. Okay. Now, the same module loader thing I kinda need to allow multiple module definitions of these so that this entire thing can be instanced. This is where C++, I have to say, would be useful because all of this would be in its own little class. And then I can just instance another version of it. Whereas in C, I don't get to do that. There's only one modules, one mod page. Then again, C is still better in every other way. Alright. So I need new versions of these. Which are going to take that modules thing and make that explicit. These are just going to call that with a default version of this. Now about these allocs, I'll need to take a look at that. Not sure what's happening there. So I'm pretty sure this alloc is only used for this thing. I'm not sure. Alright, load modules. FS search doesn't even do anything anymore, does it? No, that can go. Onload module from. Maybe more macros would be the solution to the problem, yeah. Solution to most problems, so. List root from. Alright, and now these. are going to be using a kernel module. Now, another thing is that any references that I had to module should now be gone, but they're not. Like, what are you reference? Oh. Right. Yeah, okay. Just gotta quickly make sure that all references to them make sense. Yes. Alright, so you're the one that loads it. If no kernel modules, you initialize kernel modules with this, then you call load module from kernel modules with the module that we were passed in. You unload module from kernel modules with the module that you're passed. You get a module by returning get module from kernel modules full path, and you list the module return list root from kernel modules with a buffer, a size, and then an offset. There we go. Hi, Peter. Alright, so the code should still work the same way, only that now I also support more than one of these maps. I just have a default one for the sake of simplicity. I should keep it that way. Yeah, I removed those, but I should have kept them. Because these functions still exist. Outside of here, they're being used. They're kernel only, but they're being used. Okay. And everything would appear to be working. I tried to open the one module that doesn't actually open. Oh my god. Alright, so now I need to review what this mod alloc is being used for. Is this being used for at all? Anything at all? Not even for a second is it being used. Alright, that was easy. That means this is also not being used. That was even easier. Okay. The hashmap just contains pointers, so it's really easy to just deal with it. Alright, now each process needs to have its own okay, I need to think about this for a second. What I was going to say is every process needs to have its own module definition. However, I mentioned in the past, in some cases, I will want permissions to be shared. Right? For example, let's say that you have to... This is a very extreme scenario where you have to ask for permission to access every folder, right? As opposed to every module. Let's say that you have... How did I open Quick Find? You have home, projects, my project. And then also you have, I don't know, network permissions, right? And then you also have, what else? That's it. Okay, that's good enough for me. All right, and then you have two programs which we're gonna make red, full red. And so you have your code editor and you have your terminal. And let's imagine that the code editor doesn't have an integrated terminal. So both of them will need to access this directory. as well as any as well as any other directories that you want to give them access to. Now, it's not necessarily just the terminal, it's also the shell inside the terminal. Whatever. And then certain processes inside of the terminal also need to access the network. But I was thinking, wouldn't it be nice if you could share these permissions, right? So you share them kind of for a work group or a group of some sort, so that both of these processes have access to this directory. Now, in some other cases, you'll also want some processes to share access to the network or other resources like that. But right now I'm working just on the file system. Alright, try not to fall asleep. Yeah, right now I'm working just with the file system, but this can also go for other resources. You should be able to share resources among different systems by just grouping the resource access. So it's not really about giving access directly to the process. So like I wouldn't store it here. I would want to store it somewhere else. Where essentially you say, hey, this process with this process ID is trying to access this path. It has access to the kernel full file system. It has access to its own file system, and it has access to this like group file system. So maybe I'll just want to do some routing. Instead of the hash map, store an ID, which can be a process ID. It can also be any other ID, like a group of some sort, I guess. Kinda like users, but not really. Because they're only limited to the file system. Again, any other resources has their own system of doing this thing. So instead of accessing directly through the hash map, you access through an ID. I don't necessarily love this though. Because that means that every time you do something with the file system, you need to talk to a translator to get you the correct ID. Okay, so I think I'll keep this as it is. Alright, with modules, and then build a permission system on top of that. where you can get a hash map for a certain ID. That's pretty much it. Hashmap t pointer, actually, to get a current ID. And you'll also register file system ID. It's actually not module permissions, but like file system isolation. All right, so internally, let's call it fs isolation. Not sure what happened there. Was doing some weird stuff. Anyway, fs isolation.h. All right, so I want to implement these two. You fucker! I knew it. All right, so this is actually not the header file, but it is now. This is the header file. That was being really weird there with changing the name of one of these files. Not sure what happened there. But anyway, I want to implement these two functions. And right, it's supposed to be a pointer. All right, so I'm just going to create the thing. If there isn't one, I return 0. Do I really want to use a hash map for this? Probably not. All I'm storing is pointers right now, but I'll eventually store more than that. I'll give enough space to store 256 of those. And then I'm going to use a chunk array for it, which is just an array, really. All right. Chunk array push, tell me you return an index. Yes, that's perfect. It's really as simple as that. You just create somewhere to hold all this information, and then you just create a new hash map for any ID that wants it. And you put it inside of the array, and then chunk array get return that. All right, so that should it's using the array index as an ID. When you register a process, you're given an ID. You store the ID, and you use it to have your file system permissions. Now I have to be careful, of course, because passing any ID here will give you any file system for any other process, which isn't exactly correct. Alright, so back to the process now. I do need to have some sort of permissions. And then here, file system ID is the only one I have so far. But that is fine. Redefinition of type def process T. What are you complaining about? Whatever. Alright, just give the process permissions here. Then in the syscall, you want to get the process's permissions, file system ID. Use that to get the map. Alright, use that to get the map. And I forgot the name of the function that I just created. Let's get fs for ID. Alright, I'll have to modify this a little bit. Because again, I want to have a fallback. If your process doesn't have this mapping that you're trying to give it, it still works. Okay. And this is only for open file. I also need to do it for listing. Maybe I should do it for listing first. No, I'm good with open file. All right. My God, I'm forgetting everything that I did like 10 minutes ago. All right, it's load. Right, okay, the problem is I haven't implemented this part yet. Here where I'm doing load module, which is not load module anymore, apparently, because I'm not doing that here. Get module. Where I'm doing get module, I need to do it with a specific path. Which means, oh god, okay, it means I need to modify a lot of functions if I want this to work. Christ. I mean, I need to modify open file and open file global and then do the same thing for the other one for listing directories. Those are the only places where I'm doing get module. There's not that many places. Also here, but this is a bit of a hack. Oh, and stat as well. The problem is anywhere where I call these, I'm going to need to do this. Which is kind of crazy to think about. But on the bright hand, I can get rid of these. Especially rid of this. Alright, there's no point to it. I'm also going to quickly type def, in case I ever change this to this. So I can use that as a type. Write file. See this? Bit of an issue. I'll need to see what to do about that. Yeah, okay, this can stay as get module. I'll bring it back. List directory contents requires a root. Get module from root. And then get stat also requires a root. Get module from root. Alright, which means that this function, and move this function all require a new argument. And these functions are called all over the place. Well, this one isn't, but these other ones are all called all over the place. It also means that this one okay. Not very fun to do this. Okay, I'm bringing these back, but I'm gonna move them over here. Alright, so you can still access those just fine. Alright. Open file. Oh. Now needs a module root. Needs to call this one with a root. Okay, we're good. Nope, we're not. Because doing a simple read also now requires a root. And a simple write also requires a root. Which means that these also require roots. Oh my god. Now, anywhere that I'm calling these functions, I'm going to need to change it. But yeah, that's very fun. All right. Yes, let's get started. This is the wrong way around. This should be including the FS isolation, not the other way around. Which means that you also need an include of system modules, and not sure why it include linked list when it should include hashmap. Alright, there we go. And now you got problems again. There, module loader. Okay. All should be fine now. Again, except for anywhere where I'm calling open file. The good thing is here I can just do this manually. And then descriptor, move that in. Alright, so you open file with the map. And if that succeeds, return success. Otherwise, the default version of this is to again access the... This will break the resources folder until I fully fix it. So I hope it works. Not with the map, but rather with this map. Alright, so with the kernel map, kernel fs, like that. Likewise, simple read, simple write. They will require the same kind of behavior. It's actually even more annoying to write. It's a simple read with the map, the path, the buffer, and the size. And if n, return it. Otherwise, do it with the kernel fs. Alright, same thing's gonna happen here, except it's gonna be a simple write. With the map and the kernel fs. Yeah. Directory listing. It's also going to need to do the same thing. With the map or the kernel file system. All right, again, stat. or with the default behavior of the kernel file system, path, and outstat. That's it? Okay, good. Now, pretty sure this one is also going to fail. Yep. These, though, are a lot easier because they are the syscall implementation for kernel processes and for the kernel itself, which means they all just call kernel fs here. That makes them particularly easy. All right. Can't think of any other places where I'll need to do this, but there probably are some where instead of using the syscall version of open file, I'm using this one. Yeah. That's not as many problems as I thought. Okay, you're complaining about file system isolation, actually. I didn't realize there were some errors here. Right. You need to include module loader.h to have those functions. All right, now we're talking. The pipe is having some problems. Doesn't even work or do anything, so. And also, no, pipes are not really supposed to work between modules. So they could be limited to just one module, okay. All right. Damn it. All right, that's pipes fixed. We got more. In process, loading elf file. This is trying to open an elf file. So yeah, you do that from the kernel file system. You want to use the real file system for that one. All right, and now we have undefined references to load from C++. It's this fuck-ass thing. For compatibility reasons, I'm going to allow it here. But God, I'm so getting rid of C++. Off the face of the earth, I mean. Okay. That builds. I'd be very surprised if it all runs. So far, so good. It runs? It runs. Okay. Usually working with the file system is a lot more complicated than this, so I'm a little bit surprised. But it seems to run. That's concerning. Alright, it runs. Now, it runs, but the processes will not have access to their own resources folder. That is not going to work. Do I have any that are using the resources folder? If I do image example, that one should. But none of these are being, oh no, they are being loaded. Okay, demo process is here. It just doesn't load an image because it couldn't open image. because the image is inside of resources, which does not exist. All right. So when loading a process, then I want to be able to create process. Here it is. This function. Make process file system for a specific process. All right, we're going to create it. After the process is initialized and prepared and ready, create process, no, make process file system for the proc. All right, so this, I mentioned I wanted to do groups and whatnot, but I'm not going to do them right now. So I need to include the alien isolation or whatever it was called. Why does it keep auto-completing to a folder that literally doesn't exist? I'd love to know that. Not very helpful. Anyway, process permissions file system ID is create or make. There I go again, forgetting literally code that I wrote 5 minutes ago. Register file system ID. Alright, so we're going to make it a new ID, which is going to give it an entirely new, completely blank file system for it to access. Maybe we can even move that file system into user space eventually, but not right now. It's a lot of code to move to user space. I don't feel like moving to user space right now. But it should be possible. All right. We just give it that, and then we ideally wanna give it a bundle to access. This is not gonna be easy though. It's mounted to resources. It has a version 0100. Has an initialization function that is just returns true. No deinitialization function because there's no need for that. Can I fill these out with code actions? No. God forbid an LSP is wasting resources and doing God knows what. All it does is just break every 5 minutes and provide no usefulness whatsoever. Another win by Microsoft. Alright. Stat. Open. Read. There's no writing to it, so no. There's no truncating because there's no writing. There's stat, open, read, and list. So read there. return false for now. When you open a file, you return an fs result. Kind of like that. Resource open. It's resources. Resources open. Resources. Whoops. Resources stat. Then read and read there. I still need to implement. So size t. Returning 0 as well. Resources stat. Resources open. Resources read. What is your problem with that? Can't initialize a struct file pointer char pointer unsigned long when an unsigned long. Why am I suddenly getting errors out of nowhere? I'm pretty sure this is Clang being stupid because this will probably compile. No, surprisingly no. What the fuck? Alright, so you're telling me that all of a sudden what used to be a size t now is that the problem? Am I reading it right? Your problem with my read function is that it's missing an argument. Okay, that makes more sense. Because before it also did the same thing where it complained about a size t not matching this. Where the entire reason is freaking Microsoft being stupid with their long. And also because we couldn't agree on standards at any point. But we already have standards, they're just really stupid. That's what happens when you don't agree on a standard, by the way. You end up creating a standard, it's just really stupid. Alright, this module won't do shit. Funnily enough. No, this will never print. So, not sure why I'm wasting my time with it. Probably easier to just put it here. This print. Alright, so we know it was supposed to be resources open and then the path. Right, so I want that. So that I can attach this to the file system and at least see that log, even though it doesn't do anything. And now, the real thing that I should do is forward anything to its own bundle, this one, and then whatever path it was passed, I'll have to make a system module that takes, like, allows forwarding in a simple way. So right now what I'm doing is very similar to what I was doing with the other one. Shared and home. But, alright, load module from, should be load module 2, that's not exactly the right name, actually. load module 2. Get the file system for it. We're probably going to put it in a variable because we're going to access it more than once. With the ID being this thing that we just filled out. All right. Then load it to the root, and the module is really supposed to be a copy of this one, I think. But since I'm just testing, bundle module. Count to undefined here. There. Now you happy? Alright, so that should load a resources module, but it won't actually work because it just does this. And now I forgot to change load module from to load module 2. Oh, okay. Yeah, that crashes. Alright, there's an ad starting, so I'll be back in 3 minutes. I'll fix that. Okay. Well, last time everything was crashing, so maybe it fixed itself. Cool. Yeah, that's a no. What did I do wrong? Probably a lot of things. Alright, so just to be clear, if I don't do any of this, it works, yes. I just want to see that this isn't the problem. Oh, wait, this is the problem. So this here inserts an element into the array, returns the amount, not the index. Which means you reduce it by 1. And it still fails. Excuse me? How is that failing? I expect the permission ID to be 0. Which, now to think of it, shouldn't be. Permission ID -1. So it was returning the index. I was right about that. Returns the array count +1. So returns the array count at the time, which is the index. So if you're inserting element 0, and you're telling me that you inserted element 0, and then I'm telling you to get me element 0, and you return a 0, what are you doing? What are we even doing here? Now it crashes. There's one element And this part doesn't crash anymore, so it is returning a value after printing on a single threaded system. It's impossible that this is a race condition. And yet, what, printing fixed it? I, this is great. I love dealing with ridiculous issues all the time. Really makes you love programming. It finds it. It finds
Linus
it.
doesn't
Now
followed your channel.
it finds it. I am so annoyed. What do you mean now you can find it? Now it's back. I don't remember changing anything in the actual code. And yeah, I'm back to the same exact code. Yeah, it didn't change anything here or here. And yet somehow it started working, except it still doesn't work. Because of an address size fault in TBR0 or TBR1. What does that even mean? What is an address size fault? That's a new one. Alright. Sometimes I really regret starting programming because I really don't have to do all this shit. There's really like 0 reasons why I have to deal with this bullshit. Hashmap put decided to crash. This function that has been working fine suddenly decided that this is the point where it crashes. Immediately after, the other function decided to also crash. But then fixed itself because literally no code changed in between the moment where it failed and the moment where it worked. Alright. Well, I'm literally feeling my headache getting worse. And I can feel how it's gonna get worse if I keep doing this. So I might just leave this for tomorrow because genuinely, what the fuck? I'm tired. I'm tired of programming. It turns out I don't have to do this. It's that easy. Yeah, I don't know how I'm getting what looks like race conditions on something that is a single thread with nothing weird happening in it, just creating a data structure. And then when that fixes itself magically, more errors of the sort. So I guess I'll deal with it tomorrow. I guess I don't feel like working with that right now. Alright. So I was hoping to get a little bit further than this. To be fair, I almost canceled the entire stream because I had a headache, but I was hoping, well, it shouldn't be too complicated. It's mostly about like designing and making decisions for how to design the system. But yeah, the second I encountered the slightest BS from the system, I'm giving up and I'm leaving it for tomorrow. All right, thank you so much, everybody. I'll see you tomorrow.